everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something that might seem simple on the surface, but gets super interesting the more you look into it.
I agree.
We're talking about eating with the seasons.
Oh, I love this topic.
Yeah, why do you think it's gotten so much buzz lately?
Well, for a lot of reasons, but I think people are starting to really see how much it impacts our health and the planet's health.
Totally. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. Like, eating a strawberry that's perfectly ripe and in season
versus one that had to be shipped from, I don't know, who knows where.
Yeah, exactly.
Grown in a completely different climate.
There's got to be a difference there.
A huge difference, yeah.
So let's break it all down.
Okay.
First off, for anyone who's like, wait, what even is seasonal eating?
Yeah.
How would you explain it?
Okay, so imagine like, a calendar wheel.
Okay.
And each slice of that wheel is a different season.
Yeah.
Spring, summer, fall, winter.
I'm visualizing it.
And then within each of those slices are the foods that nature provides, like at their absolute best during that time.
Makes sense.
So, like we were saying, those juicy strawberries we get in the summertime, they're just naturally bursting with flavor in June or July.
Yeah.
But try to get a strawberry in, say, December.
It's just not the same.
It's going to be pale. It's going to be probably kind of sour, not very sweet.
And probably expensive because they had to make it happen somehow.
Exactly. You're already paying more and you're getting less in terms of both nutrients and enjoyment.
So that brings up a big question. Does that mean that a strawberry in July is actually more nutritious than one in December?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
This is where it gets really cool.
Okay, lay it on me.
When fruits and veggies are allowed to ripen naturally, right there on the vine or the branch, they're able to develop their full spectrum of nutrients.
Kind of like they've had time to soak up all that goodness from the sun and soil.
Exactly. It's like nature's built-in quality control system, It knows when that fruit or veggie is at its peak.
So we're talking about more than just taste here.
Way more. We're talking about vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. All those things our bodies need to thrive.
Okay, pause right there. Antioxidants. Those are the good guys, right? But remind me what they do again.
Think of them as tiny little warriors that are fighting off these harmful molecules in our bodies called free radicals.
Ah, the free radicals, the troublemakers.
Exactly. And free radicals, they can really do some damage to our cells. They can contribute to aging, to disease, all sorts of things we don't want.
So antioxidants are like our internal defense system.
Exactly. And seasonal produce, because it's had the time to ripen naturally, is often packed with these antioxidants.
So that summer strawberry isn't just tasty, it's actively helping my body fight off those free radicals. Amazing.
It's amazing what nature can do.
And you're saying that produce that's shipped from far away, picked before it's ripe, it's missing out on some of those nutrients.
It just hasn't had the chance to develop them fully. It's like comparing a home-cooked meal made with love and care to something that's been prepackaged and processed.
Wow. Okay, I'm starting to see why seasonal eating is more than just a trendy thing. It actually makes a difference in what we're putting into our bodies.
Absolutely. It's a way of aligning ourselves with nature's rhythms and benefiting from the incredible intelligence of the natural world.
This is blowing my mind. But I have to be honest, I've definitely been guilty of buying those out-of-season strawberries.
We all have at some point.
I just never really connected it back to the nutritional content before. I was more focused on, convenience.
It's easy to fall into that trap, especially in today's world. But the good news is, becoming more aware of this connection is the first step towards making more conscious choices.
I'm ready for those conscious choices. But before we dive into the how-to of it all, you mentioned something earlier about aligning with nature's rhythms.
Oh, yes.
What did you mean by that?
Well, it's not just about nutrients. Our bodies actually have different needs throughout the year, just like nature does.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying our bodies are in sync with the seasons too?
It's true.
Yeah.
Think about it. During those colder months, when it's dark and chilly outside, don't you naturally crave heartier, more warming foods?
Oh, 100%. Give me all the soups and stews and roasted veggies.
Exactly. And those foods are often naturally energy dense, They give us that warmth and sustenance we need during winter.
But then come summertime, all I want are salads and fresh fruit.
Right. Our bodies are amazing, aren't they? In the warmer months, we crave those lighter, more hydrating foods, cucumbers, melons, all those leafy greens.
So it's like our internal system is adapting to the environment and telling us what it needs to thrive.
Exactly. It's all about balance and working with nature, not against it.
Wow, this is a serious aha moment for me. So it's not just about getting more vitamins, it's about eating foods that work with our body's natural seasonal shifts.
And when we tune into those rhythms, we're not just nourishing our bodies, we're also supporting a more sustainable food system, which is a whole other layer of amazingness.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my interest.
Yeah.
How does eating seasonally connect to sustainability? I need to know more.
Well, let's think about those out-of-season strawberries again. To get them to us in the middle of winter, they often have to be flown in from other countries, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that means a lot of fuel, a lot of energy, a big carbon footprint from all that transportation.
I honestly never even thought about that before.
It's easy to overlook, but those little choices can add up,
Totally. So, by choosing locally grown seasonal produce,
You're cutting down on that transportation, you're supporting farmers in your own community.
and you're reducing the environmental impact.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
And it can even be good for your wallet too, but we can talk about that more later.
This is incredible. It's amazing how something as simple as eating what's in season can have such a ripple effect.
I know, it's pretty amazing, right?
I'm officially convinced that seasonal eating is the way to go. But I have to admit, I'm a creature of habit. Where do I even begin to make this shift in my everyday life?
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
I've got some really easy tips that can make a big difference. And you might be surprised how simple they are to incorporate.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the insider secrets to making seasonal eating a reality.
Well, first things first, farmers markets are about to become your new best friend.
Okay, I can get behind that.
They're like a direct line to the freshest, most in-season produce available in your area. It's like going straight to the source.
That makes so much sense. But what about those times when, like, I don't know, let's say I have a major craving for blueberries in January. They're nowhere to be found at the farmer's market. What do I do?
Uh-huh. This is where a little planning comes in handy. When those blueberries are in season, stock up, buy extra, and freeze them. Or make some jam, preserve them somehow.
It's like having a little taste of summer tucked away for later.
Exactly. And you can do this with so many fruits and veggies.
I've actually always wanted to get into preserving, but it always seemed a little intimidating.
I promise, it's way easier than you think. And so rewarding. There are tons of resources online and in cookbooks.
You know what? You've inspired me. I'm adding learn to preserve food to my to-do list.
I love it. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying to be able to enjoy those seasonal flavors year-round.
Okay, so farmers markets, preserving. What else?
This one might seem obvious, but
Yeah.
don't underestimate the power of a quick Google search. Seriously, just type in something like seasonal produce near me and boom, you'll find tons of info.
It's like having a personal seasonal eating guide right at my fingertips. Technology can be helpful.
Absolutely. And speaking of technology, don't forget about those online farmers markets and delivery services.
Oh, yeah. Those are great, especially for busy weeks when I can't make it to the actual market.
So many of them are focused on local and seasonal goods.
It's like bringing the farm right to your door.
Exactly.
Okay.
I know that even with all these resources, some people might still feel a little overwhelmed. It's like, where do I even start?
Yeah, I can see that. It can feel like a big change.
It doesn't have to be, though. My best advice is to start small. You don't have to completely overhaul your entire diet overnight.
That's reassuring. Baby steps.
Exactly. So maybe this week, you just swap out one non-seasonal item in your grocery cart for something that's in season locally.
I can handle that.
Or you could try a new seasonal vegetable each month.
Love that idea. It's like a little culinary adventure.
Exactly. And remember, this is all about progress, not perfection. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just focus on making gradual, sustainable changes that you can stick with.
This has been so helpful. I'm already feeling more confident about making this shift. But before we jump into the next part of our deep dive, what are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions about seasonal eating? What do you think people get wrong about it?
Oh, good question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that eating seasonally means you're only going to have like 5 foods to choose from.
Yeah, like you're going to be stuck eating turnips all winter.
Exactly. But in reality, each season offers such an abundance of delicious options. It's about exploring and discovering what's at its peak during that time of year.
That makes sense. Another misconception I've heard is that it's too expensive.
Ah, yes, that's a common one.
Because people think, oh, I have to shop at farmers markets or buy all organic produce.
But it doesn't have to be that way.
So is it actually more expensive to eat seasonally?
Not necessarily. Remember, when you buy seasonally, you're often buying food that's grown locally, which means those transportation costs we talked about earlier are lower.
Right.
Plus, a lot of farmers markets actually have very competitive prices, and you can often get great deals on bulk purchases.
So it's about being smart and strategic about your shopping choices.
Exactly. And, let's not forget about the long-term savings. When we're nourishing our bodies with all these nutrient-rich seasonal foods, we're actually investing in our health.
That's such a good point. I never thought about it like that.
And that can potentially reduce healthcare costs down the road, you know?
It's like we're shifting from a mindset of cheap food to valuable food.
I love that. That's exactly it. And that value extends beyond just our personal health. When we support those local farmers and sustainable agricultural practices, we're investing in the health of our communities and the planet, too.
Wow, you've really given me a lot to think about. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the power of seasonal eating.
I'm so glad to hear that. It really is such a simple yet profound shift.
It really is. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
Definitely. We haven't even gotten to the really fun stuff yet. Like, how do you actually make seasonal eating work in a busy life?
Oh, I'm all about those practical tips.
Well, stay tuned, because we're about to dive into those in our next segment.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear more. Okay, so we've talked about the why of seasonal eating, and it's pretty clear that there are a lot of benefits. But I think it's worth taking a step back and thinking about how we even got to this point where eating out of season is the norm.
Yeah, it's kind of strange when you think about it, right? Like, humans have been around for a long time.
The very long time.
And for most of that time, we didn't have access to produce from all over the world.
Right. We ate what was available locally and what was in season.
Exactly. So in a way, seasonal eating is the original way of eating. It's how our ancestors ate for millennia.
So somewhere along the way, we kind of lost touch with that.
Yeah, I think you could say that. With advancements in transportation and technology, it became possible to ship foods all over the globe, regardless of the season.
And that probably seemed like a good thing at the time, right? More variety, more options.
Exactly. But like we talked about earlier, that convenience comes with some trade-offs.
The flavor and nutrition trade-offs, for sure.
Right. And we've also sort of disconnected from the natural rhythms of the seasons.
I've never thought about it that way before.
I mean, think about it. When you eat seasonally, you're more in tune with the changes happening in nature. You notice the first strawberries of the summer, the abundance of tomatoes in late summer, the arrival of pumpkins in the fall.
It's like each season has its own unique flavors.
Exactly. And by eating seasonally, we get to savor those flavors and appreciate the natural cycle of abundance and scarcity.
That's so interesting. It's almost like we've become so used to having everything available all the time that we've lost some of that appreciation for the specialness of each season.
I think there's definitely some truth to that. And it's not just about the food itself either. It's about the whole experience of connecting with nature, with our local communities, and with the traditions of preparing and preserving food that have been passed down through generations.
Okay, so we've talked about the historical perspective and how modern society has kind of strayed from this natural way of eating. But let's bring it back to the present day. What are some other reasons why people might be hesitant to embrace seasonal eating?
I think one common concern is that it's going to be too restrictive.
Like, I'm going to have to give up all my favorite foods.
Exactly. But that's really not the case at all. Remember, there's still plenty of variety within each season.
So it's more about shifting your mindset than about deprivation.
Right. It's about embracing what's available and finding creative ways to use those ingredients.
So instead of thinking, oh, I can't have avocados right now because they're not in season, it's more about thinking, okay, what delicious seasonal fruits and vegetables can I enjoy instead?
Exactly. It's all about reframing those thoughts and focusing on the abundance that each season has to offer.
I love that. And I think it's important to remember that we don't have to be perfect at this.
Absolutely not. This isn't about following a rigid set of rules. It's about making gradual changes that feel good for you and your lifestyle.
So it's okay to have those out-of-season cravings every now and then.
Of course, we're all human. But I think the more we tune into the rhythms of the seasons, the more we'll naturally find ourselves craving the foods that are in season.
That makes sense. It's like we're retraining our taste buds to appreciate what's fresh and local.
Exactly. And that appreciation can extend beyond just the taste of the food. It could be about appreciating the farmers who grew it, the land it came from, and the whole interconnectedness of the food system.
I love that. It's about seeing food as more than just something we consume. It's about recognizing the story behind it and the impact it has on our world.
Absolutely. And I think that connection can be incredibly empowering and even joyful.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I'm already starting to look at food in a whole new light. But before we move on to the more practical side of things, is there anything else you want to add about the bigger picture of seasonal eating?
One thing that I find really fascinating is how seasonal eating can actually enhance our enjoyment of food.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. When we eat strawberries in the middle of winter, they might look okay, but the flavor is often kind of bland, right?
Yeah, they don't really taste like much.
But when we eat those same strawberries in the peak of summer, when they've had a chance to ripen naturally in the sun.
They're like little bursts of sunshine in your mouth.
Exactly. The flavor is so much more intense, the texture is perfect. It's a completely different experience.
It's almost like our taste buds are more attuned to those seasonal flavors because it's what our bodies are naturally craving at that time.
I think there's something to that. And I think the more we eat seasonally, the more we start to notice those subtle differences in flavor and appreciate the unique qualities of each ingredient.
So it's like we're retraining our palates to appreciate the natural variations in food throughout the year.
Exactly. And that can lead to a deeper appreciation for the whole culinary experience.
I love that. It's about savoring those flavors and really being present in the moment when we're eating.
And it's not just about the taste. When we eat seasonally, we're also more likely to be eating a wider variety of fruits and vegetables.
That's true. If we're constantly eating the same things year-round, we're probably missing out on some important nutrients.
Exactly. And by embracing the diversity of seasonal produce, we're ensuring that we're getting a wider range of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants.
Okay, so we've covered the why of seasonal eating, and we've explored some of the historical and societal factors that have influenced our eating habits. We've even touched on the idea of enhancing our enjoyment of food by embracing the seasons. But now I think our listeners are ready for the nitty-gritty.
I agree. Let's get practical.
Let's talk about the how of seasonal eating. What are those actionable steps that we can all take to make this a reality in our everyday lives?
All right, let's dive into those tips and tricks.
Okay, so we're ready to put all this amazing knowledge into action. But where do we even start? I'm picturing our listeners out there, maybe a little overwhelmed, but definitely ready to embrace the seasonal goodness.
I love that enthusiasm. And you're right, it can feel a little daunting at first, but I promise it's easier than you think. And it gets really fun once you get the hang of it.
So let's break it down into those actionable steps, those little things we can do each day to make seasonal eating a reality. What's our first step?
All right, step one, get friendly with your local farmers markets.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, it's just the best way to connect directly with those amazing farmers who are growing the freshest, most seasonal produce in your area. Plus, you get to support your local community, which is always a good thing.
Totally. And it's not just about produce either. I've seen some amazing locally sourced meats, cheeses, honey, all sorts of goodies at my farmer's market.
Right. It's like a treasure trove of seasonal deliciousness.
Yeah.
And you can often chat with the farmers themselves, ask them about their growing practices, get recipe ideas. It's such a great way to learn more about where your food comes from.
I love that. But okay, let's be real. Sometimes, even with the best intentions, life gets in the way. And maybe we can't make it to the farmer's market every week, or maybe we just have a major craving for something that's out of season. What do we do then?
This is where a little bit of planning comes in handy. Think about those times when your favorite fruits and veggies are in season and buy extra. I mean, really stock up.
Like go a little crazy at the farmer's market.
Exactly. And then you can freeze them, can them, dry them, pickle them. There are so many ways to preserve food so that you can enjoy those seasonal flavors year-round.
I love that idea. It's like creating a little pantry of summer sunshine to brighten up those cold winter days.
Exactly. And it's not as complicated as you might think. There are tons of resources online, like simple recipes and tutorials that make preserving food super easy and fun.
So it's like having a taste of summer in the middle of winter. But what about those times when, let's say, I'm craving a specific ingredient and I just can't find it locally, or it's just not the right season for it? What do I do?
Well, that's where a little creativity and flexibility come in. Think about substitutions. Are there other seasonal ingredients that you could use to create a similar flavor profile? Or maybe you could try a completely different recipe that features ingredients that are in season.
That's a great point. It's about being adaptable and open to trying new things. And speaking of trying new things, have you ever used those online farmers markets or delivery services?
Oh, absolutely. They're a lifesaver, especially when I'm short on time or just can't make it to the physical market.
I love that they bring those farm fresh goodies right to your doorstep, and so many of them are really focused on sourcing local and seasonal produce.
Right. It's like having your own personal farmer.
So we've got farmers markets, online options, preserving. Those are some amazing tips. But I think it's worth acknowledging that even with all these resources, it can still feel overwhelming to make that shift to seasonal eating, especially if you're used to, grabbing whatever looks good at the grocery store without really thinking about it. Any advice for someone who's feeling a little intimidated by the whole process?
My biggest piece of advice would be don't try to do it all at once.
Yeah, baby steps.
Exactly. Start small and gradually incorporate more seasonal foods into your diet as you feel comfortable.
So maybe instead of completely overhauling your grocery list overnight, you could start by swapping out one or two non-seasonal items for seasonal alternatives each week.
Perfect. Or maybe you could challenge yourself to try one new seasonal vegetable each month. It's all about those little wins, those small changes that add up over time.
That's so reassuring. I love that it's about progress, not perfection. And at the end of the day, this is all about enjoying the journey. It's about savoring those delicious seasonal flavors, supporting our local communities, and connecting with the natural rhythms of the world around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the health benefits of seasonal eating, the environmental impact, the historical context, and even how to make it work in our busy modern lives. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with before we wrap up this deep dive?
As we were talking about all of this, it really struck me how much power we have as individuals when it comes to our food choices.
That's so true.
By choosing to eat seasonally, we're not just nourishing our bodies, we're also casting a vote for a more sustainable, equitable, and delicious food system.
That's such a powerful message. It's a reminder that even small changes can make a big difference.
Exactly. And I hope that our listeners will feel inspired to go out there and explore the bounty of each season and savor those amazing flavors. It's an adventure for your taste buds and for your soul.
Well said. We hope this deep dive has given you all that satisfying in-the-know feeling about seasonal eating. It's been such a pleasure diving into this topic with you today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, happy exploring and happy eating.